Hello, viewers. Don't mind my messy background. I am packing for a trip tomorrow. We're here with part 2 of our exit interviews. So you just saw, if you haven't seen Stokes's exit interview with Erica from the other day, go watch it. It's great. But I have juror number 2 with us here this evening as you wrap up your workday and get ready for exciting things like who's won the HOH in the house, the Big Brother finale tonight, among other things. So let's bring her out. She was on track to clinch that comp record and take it from me, and I was willing to give it to her. And she was such a beast inside of the house in terms of those comps. Without further ado, it's Sarah. Sarah, how are you?
Hello. Hi, everybody. Hey, Lee.
So you've not had a lot of time outside of the game yet, but how have you been able to process your eviction so far? Just general thoughts. We'll get into some more pointed questions, but...
Yeah, I have been processing and just thinking a lot. And I think one of the things that Erica and I stated to each other was both of us didn't really have a lot of outside alignments or alliances going on. And I think that I could have done more on that front. Like that's kind of my initial thought. Like that was creating multiple people alliances was clearly something other people were doing, and that's why they're still there. And because I was not doing it, here I am. So that's kind of the initial thought. And then another thing is just like, I think that Erica and I were both too good to not be used as pawns in the specific way that the house is lining up right now, coming out of the split household. I think that there needed to be pawns, but there needed to be non-obvious pawns. So I think that's part of why she and I are both here. And then the other thing is just like, I just think like, I don't know. I'll stop there for now, and maybe I'll have answers to more specific questions.
Well, I want to back up to the beginning of this because you played the very first season, as Josh alluded to, and you played season 5. You know what it's like to also play in a returner season, but you've played definitely in the older era of BBH. You played in mostly the editions of Josh's friends and family and things of that nature. And so to come back, and we saw how excited you were coming back and getting into this and doing your homework. What was it like to integrate into this game with a bunch of people who they found this because they've played other games? They found this because, they weren't necessarily Josh's friends or family, but it was a very different kind of crop of people that you were playing with.
Very much that. And I'll speak more to this later, but I think I had really positive feelings about it, and then some kind of hesitant feelings about it too, because like you said, there were those connections that other people had. I had seen, because I did watch some of the intervening seasons before 20 started, I had seen some of these people play, but it's very different, like if they knew that I was, if they knew I was watching them or whatever. So I tried to take that as an opportunity to like use those fresh starts, use those like unknowns to create my identity within the game, which is very close to my identity outside of the game. I'll be honest. Like so I know that people a lot of times from day one told me like, oh, I know this person, but this is an entirely different game, and I can't let them, how I knew them in the past, influence my game now. But that is just such an easy thing for people to be able to connect with at the start of the game, even if you're saying it's not happening, even if you don't really want that to happen. It is very much there. I do also think that is part of what made my like lack of alliances, like I was saying, because in my past games, I already had these connections with these people.
Mm.
And specific, okay, so in season 5, it was like the Statesville crew, the Statesville, North Carolina crew, that kind of naturally allied together, and then the South Carolina crew that naturally allied together. So I think that is a big part of why I didn't like pursue multiple person alliances, is because like I hadn't had to do that before.
Okay. So I'm so interested in this because you did look back on a lot of the seasons before this started, and you said you watched some of these people play, and some of these people, like, they've either known each other, they've either played something else together, they may just like know each other from a distance, but really your first impression of some of these people were watching them play something and thinking, hey, maybe I'll see them. So watching beforehand, or even like seeing someone, who were the people that you were recognizing and thinking like, ooh, I would love to play with someone like that, or ooh, I don't know that I would love to play with them based on what I saw?
Yeah. I mean, it sounds obvious, but like truly, I was such an Erica Petrillo fangirl coming into this season. Like, I really enjoyed watching Rick in her season. I do think she was robbed at finale. And so I was so excited to have the opportunity to work with her. I do think that our gameplay styles do align very well. And we proved that in this game. Like, we were able to do a lot together in this game because she was my first connection, like really strong connection in this game, I would say. I saw more of Christian on podcasts instead of during like I saw him play his season, but I saw more of his take on like how things how the game was playing out by other people. And I do think he seems a little bit like a fan of a little bit of chaos. Like, and so I think that proved itself too, just in terms of not always knowing what he was going to do with anything, with nominations or votes or things like that. Not that it stopped me from wanting to work with him, but I realized that what I was seeing, I read pretty correctly. So yeah, those are two specific people, and I know those are even from older seasons too, but yeah.
Okay. So Tay asked this question. I love this question, but how were the competitions this season? Were they similar or different? How were they similar or different to what you were doing in seasons 1 and 5?
I think the vibe of them is similar, like just the idea of them is similar, but there's so much higher, like legitimately, there's so much higher production value to things that like I'm specifically thinking of Train of Thought, and of the arcade. Like that would have been, so in 1 and 5, it was all just Josh, basically. It was all just Josh. So that, especially the arcade, would have been just much too much for Joshua to handle on his own. So just legitimately, the production value of things is a lot higher, which was really cool, and I really enjoyed a lot. One of the things that I mentioned during the endurance challenge was that in season 5, I had also done well in the endurance challenge, which was solo cups and a tennis ball in between them and holding them. So I am really great at holding cups, is a similarity from back in the day to now.
Great. Well, I mean, we saw you really beast through some of these comps, and I think, win challenges, not only, when you did need them, but really clutch them up when you did need them. What was your favorite comp moment?
Honestly, it probably does have a lot to do with the endurance challenge, because around minute like 35, I think when I first asked CLC if I needed to keep going. And by that time, there were still several people to go, so he didn't know. So I just kept standing there. So we legitimately had really great conversation. Like, I totally loved just chatting together during that. And then the realization that I had just done far too much when the scores came out, and I had just done far, far, far too much. It just makes me giggle a little bit. I think also, let me think. Oh, live night, duh. As we're going through the board games, and like I continue moving on, and honestly, Can't Stop is the game that I had put the most practice time into before live night. And so they announced that, and I was like, yes. And I just like, I was like, oh, I was still on camera. Yeah, because it was live night. I was just like shaking, and it was very exciting. And I don't know. I honestly don't know who Liv would have taken off between me and Michael, because I know now that like she is very close with Michael, and had like told him she would never vote him out, and so now I don't know what she would have done. At the time, I assumed that she would have taken me off, but it did feel just so good. And in my like my diary room video right after that, it just felt so good to take control of my own destiny in that moment and win there. It just felt great.
Awesome. Yeah, no, I think everyone saw exactly what that meant to you, and in that moment, how important that win was for you. So, very awesome. I also like you beasted through Can't Stop like someone who knew exactly what they were doing. So.
Yeah, I really like that one. That is, if nothing else from this season, that's something that I super appreciate. Is I got a Board Game Arena account, and I learned this new game that I had no idea about.
I'll be sending you tons of recommendations.
Please bring them on. Anybody, yeah, bring them on.
So I also want to back up before I get to some of the other viewer questions, because at the beginning of this season, you were part of the team captain twist. You were selected as I rebuke you saying I was selected as the dumbest person. You were selected as the least high in the brain category.
Okay.
But hey, you showed them that you weren't dumb anyway. So tell me a little bit about just in that moment going through the team captains. You're there with Trey and Victoria. What are your reactions to being a team captain? What is your thought process into picking people for your teams? And more importantly, like how do you feel like that round specifically set up your game?
So I had just come off of, as you mentioned, watching some of the older seasons. And when I was watching season 15 that Ian was playing on, the amount of times people like, whether intentionally or unintentionally, like not belittled, but just like underestimated him in a lot of ways, just with the words that they were using and the attitudes that they had towards him, just because he hadn't played since a single digit round since season 1. That was very fresh in my mind, and something I was very concerned about coming in, that people were going to treat me like. And then when I got that news that people had rated me the lowest for the smarts category, if we're using that terminology, it felt like the realization of these worries that I was having. So I had to work past that first, which was a little bit of a challenge, because I do like to be clever, and I do like people to know that I'm smart. So after working past that, there was very much a period of like telling, this became the reality of people maybe not doing those rankings as like intentionally as Prod intended us to do them. so that's kind of like, once I moved past it and started thinking logistically about what the lists looked like and things like that, that's kind of where I landed. But it definitely informed my game as far as like, we were chatting beforehand. I just like being good at stuff, and I like people knowing that I'm good at stuff. And so especially like to be told, oh, you're not going to be the best at this, you're going to be the worst at this, definitely propelled me to like do really well.
No, that's awesome. Okay, so we're gonna go through a couple of questions. You've talked about this, but I think so. We talked about kind of who you were close with, who your like favorites were, who you were drawn to. Who do you wish you would have been able to work with more?
I wish that Nikki and I had worked together as much as I thought we were working together. To be honest, that's really what it is. And I think that if we had, then I would still be in there, to be honest. Yeah, I don't know. I still don't know whether the reasons that she gave me for putting me up on Live Night are truly the reasons that she put me up on Live Night. But if I had like been more communicative and clear about some of the things that she was questioning, I think that we could have worked together and actually enacted stuff a lot more together.
Okay. In that same vein, and this may be the same answer, I don't want to speak for you, but who are you maybe the most disappointed with? Who do you feel let down by? Okay.
Lamont.
Okay.
Yeah, I just think that he ended up lying to me at points when it didn't matter whether he was telling the truth or lying. And so he intentionally chose to lie at some specific points. And then from the afternoon before Live Night through the afternoon before I got evicted, all he was saying to me was, I want to be able to do something that shows that I support you. I want to be able to do something that I support you, that shows that I support you. And then for Jabbar to be HOH and Lamont to not take that opportunity to support me and like, first of all, tell Jabbar not to put me on the block. Second of all, like even vote for me when it was clear that I was going home. I know this is something that I also had to like come to understand a little bit in this game. That's still a struggle for me that I don't really get is people voting where the house is, like people being so focused on voting where the house is. Because for me, I never did that. Like that was never the focus of where I was putting my vote. And I don't know if that's because I'm not good at playing these games. Like I'm not seasoned in playing these games, and that's like it is a more strategic move to stay with the house. I agree, Tay. It just very much rings like an excuse. It very much does ring like an excuse. And there were several points in this game that I spoke to Prod about this, about things like just being that way because that's the way it is. Like things just being that way in orgs games because that's the way they are in orgs games, not because that's a better gameplay or not because that's the way to play with integrity. It's just because that's the way that things happen.
Yeah, we heard you say this a lot. I mean, even last night on your call with Erica, vote the way you want. You know, the vote, and I think the thing that I have always resonated with so much that you said last night as well was, you know, when someone says the votes aren't there, well, you are the votes. Mm-hmm. So that, I mean, what you said resonates a lot with me, and I'm sure it resonates with a lot of people. I don't think that makes you a bad player that you don't want to vote with the house. Yeah, I think sometimes it just comes with the climate that is set, and
100%.
And sometimes that can be used as a fear tactic or something. Right.
Very much, but I guess leading into that, you were asking who I'm disappointed by, and it is Lamont because he didn't have to. I didn't ask him to say,
sure,
show me an action that shows you support me. I didn't ask him to say that. He didn't have to promise that to me. And that's why it hurt more that he didn't do the thing that he said, you know? So.
Do you think that there is anything, and if so, what, that Lamont can do to turn you around should he make the end or even get your vote?
Probably not. To be perfectly honest, like, because it wasn't just that. Lamont and I had several hard conversations where he was saying, I'm sorry, I shouldn't have done that. I want to be open with you. And then continue to like not do that. So at this point, no, I don't think so.
Okay. So let's flip it to the other side here. Who are you most excited to watch their game of the people left?
Yeah. I think Jabbar is really great at comps, and he has like, obviously I was not working with Jabbar, and he's why I'm here. But he's really good at comps, and he's really good at like doing the things, I guess. Like, he'll put up the people who are not just the obvious pawns, I guess.
Okay.
And though it was frustrating as hell as a player to like not be able to get any information from him, that's obviously good for his game. I also am really interested to see where Michael goes in this game, because so many people are like, oh, I haven't talked to Michael that much. He won that first HOH in the Braun house, I think, and hasn't really shown up since then. So I hope that he's not just being used truly as a pawn. So I would be interested to see like how in this later game he puts up more of a fight, because I think in the last 2 rounds especially, he realized he needs to make some group connections. And obviously with that 5-person that came out of the split houses, he does have a bit of a group. So I hope that he continues to do that.
So you also talked about, you had really good, strong relationships with both Liv and Megs in the game. How are your feelings about them post, your exit from the house, how you were evicted? What do you see as kind of the path forward for them?
But both of them are also really good at comps. So, and I haven't looked at it. I don't know if they announced who won yet, but, do you want to?
Megs is the new head of household.
Okay. So definitely their path forward is winning those HOHs, because, yeah, they're capable. They're very capable of winning competitions. So I think that will help them immensely to have power and keep power. And knowing that they're in, somewhat of an alliance against the other side, how I was perceiving it, towards the end there. Yeah, if they can kind of just like swap power there, that would be great for them. Knowing now that 5-person group had, I do think that if I had stayed up against Megs, that Liv would have voted to save me, and that could have influenced other people, just to have at least one strong person saying that they would vote to save me. That could have completely changed things. I'm trying not to be too salty about voting where the house is. I'm really trying not to, but it is really frustrating to hear like, oh, I want you to stay, but everybody else is voting this way, so I guess I'm going to go along with this, when it can so easily be swayed. We saw with the Victoria and Nikki vote, the whole entire house can be swayed from one side to another over the course of a round.
Yeah. So speaking of the Victoria vote, there were some really contentious votes, things that flipped totally around. You see Victoria's vote flip around. You see the contentious Rizzo vote. You see the split houses. You ultimately see Preston's vote. Do you feel like any of the pre-jurors leaving, do you feel like that was a missed opportunity for you in any way?
I think Let me think. I don't especially think so, because I did vote. I think I did vote to evict everybody who got evicted. And like I said, I don't vote with the house. Like, I never voted with the house. I only voted for my game. So if I voted to evict them, that I really wanted that. So sure. No, I don't think so. Specifically with Preston's being on with Preston, like that alliance with Liv and Erica and Preston and myself had gotten broken and or had gotten leaked, and I'm not sure that there was much there moving forward. And I always knew that I was the expendable one in that group before. So that is a person I had an alliance with, but I don't think it would have gone, for me, it wouldn't have gone past where he left anyway.
Cool. So, all right. So we've only got about 10 days, 12 days left until the game ends. I'm so curious, out of all of these players, what are you looking for someone to talk about when they are pleading their case to win? You've been there. You've been in those spots before where you've pled your case. What are you looking for? Like, what kind of story or just what are you looking for in a winner?
I think for me, a lot of that has to do with creating alliances that you work with, like truly work with, not just like in the train of thought round, I'm thinking specifically, that group of 4 said they only grouped together to do that comp and they weren't looking long-term. I would love to see a long-term alliance that worked together and was open and communicative, because that is so important to me. Who played that through the long game, and influenced things being done or influenced powers being taken and stuff like that. I think not somebody who's played a transparent game, because that's too much to ask in a situation like this, but the lies need to make sense. The emotional manipulation, as it were, needs to make sense to me. Yeah, I think that's a lot of it.
So what you're saying, because I mean, we know your phrase, fuck them. So what you're saying is you don't mind if any of this has happened, but it just needs to make sense as to why it happened.
100%. And that's like, I know people lied to me, and I know that I probably sound really upset about it, and I probably sound really bitter about it, like specifically with Lamont. But to me, his lies don't make sense. To me, Nikki, at the time that she was lying to me, like I said in my diary room, she lied to me, and then, okay, that puts her in a safer place with a group who is in the minority of the house, who everyone is now out to get coming out of the split houses. Great job, I guess. But I mean, all 4 of them are still in there. So that does mean something, but I just don't know that it meant that much then. Like, it doesn't make sense then.
Yeah, no, that's really great. So you know that Megs is the HOH. Who are you immediately nervous for? Who do you think you're going to see next?
Probably Louise and Jabbar. Okay. I think that's a good possibility.
All right. Any closing thoughts, final words, anything you wanted to say about your experience?
Yeah, truly. I'm so glad that I was invited to come back and play this game. I have loved playing it again. I've loved experiencing the differences between the early seasons and now, even though, like, this is a long game now. This is such a very long game now. And truthfully, I would have been hard pressed to make it to the end, just in terms of duration, just in terms of endurance of gameplay. I am really excited with the connections that I've made, both in prod and in players. And I really truly have had a good time. I've enjoyed my time very much.
Well, I can tell you, we have really enjoyed you. You have a lot of viewers that love you very much as well.
Thank you.
And we were so so lucky that you came back this season. It's always fun to see one of the OGs come back and see how they can do. And you were magical. So I really appreciated getting to watch you play. All right. Well, viewers, that's all we've got for this exit interview. You'll see Sarah on finale night where she will cast a vote for a winner. And I have a feeling she is going to bring the finalists to task, whoever those two may be. So that's all for us. We're going to sign off, and good night, everybody.
Good night.